Okie dokie. So we covered we covered photosynthesis. So now we're going to cover cellular respiration. I'm going to do an overview and then talk about each little segment in the reaction, and then sum it up, hopefully following the numbers in the end. And so we're going to try to follow that format. And so this is just going to be an overview of cellular respiration. So I'm going to start by looking at the overall reaction of it. And so for the reactants of the reaction, we're going to have C6H12O6, or glucose. We're going to add a little oxygen. And from that, we're going to get a little water back, we're going to get a little CO2 back, and energy, which is kind of in the form of ATP. So the goal is to take this high energy molecule, add some oxygen, and we're going to get back water, CO2, and ATP. So we have that glucose, and this is kind of a depiction of a cell. There's a lot going on here, and I'll do my best to explain. But this outer wall right here, this line, is the cell membrane. And so the first thing that's going to happen is the glucose is going to come into that cell, and in the cytoplasm, glucose is going to go through what is the reaction called glycolysis. This glycolysis reaction is going to give us 2 ATP, 2 NADH, which is going to be used later in oxidative phosphorylation to give the most bang for the buck in ATP production. After glycolysis, we have 2-pyruvate, and that pyruvate is going to go into the Krebs cycle, but to get into the Krebs cycle, it needs to go through some link reaction. From the link reaction, CO2 is produced, also 2 more NADH, and then we're going to attach a enzyme to it, coenzyme A, and so then we have acetyl coenzyme A, and that is allowed to pass through because pyruvate here can't go through this membrane of the mitochondria, and then the acetyl coenzyme A is going to go into the Krebs cycle. Out of the Krebs cycle, we're going to get some CO2 and some ATP, and a lot of NADH and some FADH2 as well. And then these two, NADH and FADH, these two, and the NADH from our glycolysis and NADH from our link reaction, is going to go to oxidative phosphorylation, and this works similarly to the light-dependent reactions in photosynthesis, and that we're going to use the energy from these reactions moving electrons to pump through an electron transport chain to move hydrogen ions through in a high concentration in an area, to then when they move out, they get made through ATP synthase. And so you should recognize that enzyme right there. And so just some naming terminology. This is the cell wall. Glycolysis happens in the cytoplasm. To recap, in the mitochondria, pyruvate is going to enter. So, and then on the mitochondria, you have an inner membrane, an outer membrane, and the inner matrix. And the Krebs cycle happens in the inner matrix. Oxidative phosphorylation happens on these cristae here in the inner membrane. And that's kind of a good overview of cellular respiration. I hope that was helpful.